Call the Destin Fire Control District special meeting agenda of the Board of the Destin Fire Commissioners. We're at 848 Airport Road here in Destin. The date is January 27, 2020. The time is 10 o'clock a.m. This meeting is open to the public, so I'd like to open the floor up to any public comments. Seeing none, I'm going to close the floor to public comments. The purpose of this meeting is to discuss and take away any actions relating to the construction and remodel of the new fire station and the purchase of the new fire apparatus. However, we're going to move the new fire apparatus to another meeting due to the fact that Rob couldn't be here, the rep of the fire deal. So, but kind of how I want to start this meeting off, I want to we're going to do a roundtable talking about, our vision of what we'd like to see in the department going over at the substation over on Calhoun. So I'd like to start, and then I'm going to pass the ball to Chief, and then go around the table this way. And then we'll kind of hash out, talk about visions and what have you, and then however the ball takes us, we'll run with it. Fair enough? Okay. All right, so I'm going to start off saying, I think we always got to stay focused on the reasons why we wanted to have a substation on that end of the town. And that was to have our quicker response to the west end station, the west end of the populace, and to waterborne emergencies, such as Crab Island, Harbor, the Pass, and what have you. So let's keep that in mind when we think about what direction we want to go with on construction and what have you. We keep that goal in mind. That's what we're trying to accomplish. And also keep it at a minimum as far as cost. That was a big factor. We have to keep looking at, our first spot was going to be at the park. There's going to be a small footprint. There's going to be something that we could live with to respond and meet that need of the mission. Okay. And with a dock and the boat there and what have you. So that's kind of where I'm going as far as where we need to move now to the other property next to it is that, and then maybe a couple other caveats that we could add to it that would help it. We talked about the 2-bay, but since we're on that property, I see that we have the bay house. Okay. I think we ought to use the bay house to its full extent as long as we can. That is an asset that we purchased and we need to utilize it. I can't see tearing down a good piece of property, good piece of asset to build something else right now. Now in the future, that could be something different. But I'd like to see the bays put in. And while we're building the bays, I would like to see possibly some living quarters on top. Just go ahead and make that a part of that building initially. Reason being, in the future, if we decide to do something else with the back building because it's either too low for flooding or hurricane, whatever, we still have living quarters on the top that they can utilize and still operate and complete the mission. So that's kind of my vision, and it'd be a Cat 5 building, one that it'll withstand the Cat 5 hurricane. And I know we possibly wouldn't want to reside in it during a Cat 5, but we'd like to return to it and it'd still be there. So I believe that when it gets above 3, Chief, correct me if I'm wrong, we go across the bay, don't we?
That's currently correct.
Okay.
That's right.
So anything other than that, we're not here anyway, but we need to come back to facilities that we can hit the ground running and start operating and provide the services again.
Yeah, as part of that, if I can interject now, I may do it later, but as far as that is concerned, we leave because we're not necessarily certain what our buildings, this building and part of Station 10 can withstand as far as wind. And the other aspect is that once wind gets to 45 miles an hour, we're not really responding anyway because it puts our folks and our equipment in a higher danger area than what would normally be outside of that scope. We're not going to respond when hurricane winds are blowing outside.
Right.
We'll have to wait until after the emergency's over. or after the storm passes, when the winds come down, and then we respond back out, which falls right back into what you're saying about we want to come back to and be able to operate immediately. And as the storm starts to clear, we come back in and we start working. So that ability to be able to go right back to work in our areas, I think is very important. But yes, sir, that is correct. We don't respond while a hurricane's blowing outside.
Right. And kind of the facade that I'd like to see, one, I live on Calhoun, but I like the old part of Destin look. I kind of like to try to keep it in that look instead of a more modern, out of place building, kind of offset from the street, that it's not in a, you can't really see it that well, but you can still utilize the in and out portion of it. It kind of just blends into the community there. That's kind of what I'm thinking. Dialing it into more of what we need. I think that's what the professionals, utilize. And like I've always said, I always defer to what the operations wants, what they need, what they have to operate and keep the public, one, serviced and satisfied, and two, the firemen and the staff and everybody, that they can work together and be safe. And I always say we got to have a safe place to work. So that means, and I'm sure Chief's going to talk more about that as far as some of the requirements that we're going to have for the building, for contaminated areas, non-contaminated areas, away from the sleep area, away from washing areas and all that kind of stuff. So he knows all about that stuff. So he's going to have to talk about that, how we're going to have to set the building up with that. But my general thoughts is maybe a 2-bay large building so we can pull our apparatuses in, pull the boat in, put everything, house it inside that building during a hurricane. So we don't have to transport it all over town, trying to hide it and keep it safe. So I think that's all I've got about that. And everybody will have ideas and we'll build off of that. So, and there's no right, or, good or bad ideas or whatever. I think it's a melting pot. We got to bring it all together and come together and put the marching orders out. So it's the public station. That's what we always got to keep in mind. We have the input, but again, at the end of the day, it's what's best for the citizens and what's best for the fire department as a whole. That's what we have to come together to do. Does that sound good? So, Chief, I'm punting to you.
Yes, sir. Hopefully, I'm been known to talk a lot, so I'm going to plan on not doing that now. I'm going to keep it short and then answer any questions as the board goes through that they might have for me. But my general feelings on a station, this station, or any station, but specifically this one, the reasons that we wanted to be on that end of town were to reduce our response time for emergencies on the water and on land on that end of town. That's the reason we pushed as hard as we did to be located where we're located, as well as the reason that we're at the property that we purchased now, is it provides us with that water access for quicker response on the water, as well as being on that end of town, provides us the ability to respond to our citizens on land for land-based emergencies rapidly. So the two things that really are extremely important, I believe, are our ability to cut down our response times, keeping that in mind for our citizens and visitors, and then the health and safety of our folks that'll be operating down there. So that's the two things that I'll kind of guide where I would like to see it go, and probably my input. With our folks working down there, having those areas that provide for their safety, as in where their bunker gear is stored separate from their living quarters, having a decon area separated by a wash area, and then a clean area. So therefore we can, when they come back on fire, they have the ability to be able to go into one area that's the dirty area, take their clothes off, put it to the side, go into a shower, take a shower, come out the other side, put clean clothes back on, and then they can go and take care of the dirty clothes and ensure that gets washed. But it's not, the big thing is that it's not, that the carcinogens still on their body. They clean that and their uniforms end up in a washer and being washed and then decontaminated through that process. So, as well as the, separating the station being separated in the areas that are dirty and the areas that are clean. So therefore their sleeping and living quarters are always the clean area and nothing that's dirty ever gets transported into that area, whether it's their buffer pants, coats, even themselves when they've been exposed, that kind of thing. So that'll kind of be my guiding principles as we kind of go through that, is that keeping our response time as short as possible for our citizens, but at the same time, taking care of our firefighters. I've always tried to avail myself and staff as a resource for all commission with any questions they ever have. So if there's an idea that somebody has in between the meeting, we're always available to answer that, do any research that this board may want individually or together. So if there's, as I said at the last meeting about, we know we had already done the research, we knew we could afford to buy the property at 2.5, we'd already identified where that payment would come from, if we had had to get the loan, that kind of thing. So we'll do those things if this commission says this is the direction we want to go. Catherine and I get together and do the analysis to identify where and how we can accomplish what this board wants to do. So based upon the guidance from this board, my job will be to ensure that it is implemented. So if this board said this, given directions where we want to go, I'm going to ensure that's the direction that we go and that we accomplish whatever the task or that you set out for us. What I would do as we go through this process is ensure that we ask for the input of those that will be living there as well as those that have experience. So deferring to my battalions and asking them for input, as well as the firefighters that will be living in those quarters, I'll ask them for their input. And then we'll evaluate what it is they provide, whether or not it's able to be accomplished or it isn't, or whether it's a safety issue or it's a difference between a need and a want. And that'll be something that can provide that information to as far as the board, whether I believe it's a need or a want, and then the board can evaluate it, whether they feel as though it's a need or a want, whether it's something that we can incorporate, even though it's a want, something we can incorporate, or it's a need, how we go about incorporating that in there.
Right.
So I would like to see the board, either through myself or however the board so chooses, to be able to solicit the input of our folks that will be living there, and utilizing those guiding principles that I have as far as cutting down response time, as well as providing for their safety, see what it is that they feel is the need, and then also their wants, we can see what those are as well. Doesn't necessarily mean that we'll put those wants into play. If we can, we will, but if we can't, we will not, just as long as we address those things. So that's kind of where I'm at, as far as trying to address those two things that I think are paramount in locating a station down there, or whatever we do down in that area, providing for our citizens as well as taking care of folks. Overall, that's where I'm kind of looking at. So, and always being available as a resource for this commission, always.
Now, the money to do what we want to do, we've already found that, correct?
We actually, Ms. Catherine and I, or Ms. Catherine predominantly, but with my guidance and input, did do some further research while we were in between our last meeting and this one, because we wanted to find what outside parameters were, as far as what the board could do on an outside. Obviously, anything inside those parameters are doable, but we want to find those outside parameters. So Ms. Catherine's got some information on that at a given point that she can provide as far as numbers and what we feel, conservatively, what we feel this board has the ability to be able to work inside based upon our budget. And
Because that's the bottom line. We got to work within that budget.
Right, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right. So, although the number we'll provide is an outside. So anything within that, obviously, the board doesn't have to go to that outside number. We just want you to know that we think that's as far as we can stretch the budget and make it work based upon certain parameters. obviously doesn't have to spend that amount of money. But we wanted to make sure that you understood the full capability of how far we thought we could go and our budget to be able to absorb that. So, and so we do have those numbers, and Ms. Catherine can kind of go through that at a given point, whatever the board would like.
I think it's a good idea to do it now, so.
Yeah,
Gives
I mean,
us
are you
an idea
prepared,
what
Kevin?
we're dealing with.
So,
Okay.
yeah, with that, I'll also throw in there, we had some input from Mr. Wagner asked for us to think outside the box. So, to try to come up with, of course, we think we do that anyway. But I wanted to let you know, he did come to us and say, hey, once you think outside the box, how can we afford this? How can we do that?
From her, if we can, unless you got the number.
I've got the numbers.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I've got the numbers.
Okay, so if you're gonna cover it.
And then if I see something wrong,
Get the
please
fans
correct me.
on by chance. It's getting a little stale on there to me.
All right, well, I don't want to be a dead horse, but like, how did we get here? We got here, we tried to go to the park, we tried bold idea, we tried to build a station at no cost to the taxpayer. We tried using impact fees, doing a joint effort with the city and trying to have the property paid for. That fell through, and unfortunately, it didn't work. It took us 3 years. We tried, we wasted 3 years. We could have been here 3 years ago, hopefully, but we didn't, that didn't happen. So instead, we bought the Bay House property for $2.4 million. This commission didn't bat an eye and spend $2.4 million because they knew the need we needed to have down in that area. We needed it for the water, like you said, for the water. We needed it for the land, for quicker response time. Chief alluded to that also. So the big commitment we didn't buy that piece of property for the trees. We didn't buy it for the view. We didn't buy it for the Bay House. We're not turning it into a museum. I agree with you saying utilize the Bay House, but I'm on a different path. Use it until we build a new station, and like you said, put a second quarters above it. My idea, my vision is to have 3 bays. We just spent, I don't know if you guys know that, but we just spent $300,000 between the TRT trailer, the equipment, and a new truck. We spent $300,000. The last thing I want to do is keep it outside. So the reason why I want 3 bays is because we want to have place for a boat, place for like this commission wants to have an ambulance service. We've talked about. So in the future, we want an ambulance service. So I have a bay for the truck, for a fire truck, a bay for the ambulance, and a bay for the TRT trailer or a boat or anything else. So we need to think about not only for now, but we need to think about for the future, what we need down the road. So we already spent $2.4 million. So let's use our money wisely. And using another $2 million to build a property is something we have to think about. And it's a lot of money. But I like the idea of using the Bay House temporarily. I don't think it's a 70-year-old building. I don't like putting good money after bad money. It's a 70-year-old building. It's not historic. It's an old house. It's a house.
Right.
And it's not. And then for me to design, I want to use it until we tear it down and put a parking lot there. You guys don't like the idea, but the reason why I want to put a parking lot there is because we can drive down. I went to the chief. I went to the battalions. I went to the firefighters. I talked to everybody. I went to every firefighter. Not one person. They were all in agreement. All the firefighters were in agreement. They'll live in the Bay House temporarily, but they don't see the functionality of it. They don't see the efficiency of it. They like the idea of being in one building and being able to have quick access. And that's why we're down there, for quick access. So I want to send out some pictures and show you guys what I come up with. See. Come on.
I'm glad you made copies.
Yeah. Okay. Everybody just through here. This is the layout of the front.
You got some homework.
I've done some homework. property. Look here, the chief copy. Ms. Catherine for the record, did you want to? Mm-hmm. Yeah, which one's it? I need it downstairs. Here you go.
So is this oriented north, just like the plan
Yeah,
is?
yeah, for like
Your building?
the engine, the out, going out, for like first, this is the, where you got the map here. I got a bigger, I have a bigger version too, if you want to see it bigger, but a bigger version. The small part of the property is Calhoun, the bigger part down here is the water down here. Okay? Now, as for the building itself, the bedrooms on the second floor facing Calhoun. The training area, the kitchen stuff's facing the water, and on the third, the fire truck's facing Calhoun. The bays are there.
Oh,
Now,
so it's like this. Fire truck's going this way.
going toward, yeah, turn around, that's going up.
This guy?
That's going up to Calhoun. Yeah, see
Oh,
the-
up to guy. Okay,
Yep.
gotcha.
Okay. So as you said, I went to the administration, I talked to them, they got their ideas on what's efficient and what's workable. And less response time for our taxpayers. I went to the firefighters. And before I even say what the firefighters said, I want to tell you, the firefighters, they don't care whatever we come up with as a board, they will do. They don't care. They're not picking an option. All they do is give me their input. So I want to make that clear. They have no skin in this game. I asked them for their expertise, and that's what they gave me. All right? And not one of them liked the idea of being in the Bay House, only temporarily. Temporarily, they said no problem. They would work with it. But if I wanted their opinion, they gave me their opinion. Their opinion was they needed 2 stories and they needed a Cat 5 proof hurricane, and they needed something to come back to. They said, and then matter of fact, a few of them made a comment. I said, I've been in there one time when there was 6 feet of water in there. He said, we've had hurricanes around in this area before. There's been 6 feet of water in there. Never been destroyed completely, but there's been 6 feet of water.
In the Bay House?
In the Bay House. In the Bay House.
It is low there.
They also have concerns about asbestos because it's an old building. They have concerns about aluminum wire in that building. They have lots of concerns about that.
I'm sure that's been brought up to code though.
I don't know.
Bay House.
It was something, I don't know. We have to find out.
Yeah.
That's something we have to find out.
Yeah.
So that was some of their concerns. And again, they don't care. Whatever the board come up with, they said they made it very specific. Whatever they come up with, the board comes up with, they will go with. But they gave me their input. And part of their input was, think about this. They said, it's gonna look like a volunteer fire department. We just spent $2.4 million. You're gonna put us in the Bay House. They said, that's something a volunteer fire department would do. That's not something a professional fire department would do. And it stuck with me. They made a big impression on me. And I said, you know what, you're probably right, because we're there for a reason and for a quicker response. We're not there to save and make it into a museum. It's a building, it's a nice building, but it's not worth much. According to the tax collector, it's only worth $112,000. That's all it's assessed for. It's not no big thing. He says, how many times you guys all been, you've been in property, you've been doing something before. How many times have you bought a piece of property and tore it down to build something else? If somebody spent $2.4 million, they're not gonna live in that property. Maybe temporary until something else is built, but they're not gonna live it permanently.
Right.
It's not feasible, it doesn't make sense.
I don't think anybody was trying to make it permanent.
So now, okay, so any questions about the building? Let's go to the building. And again, the bottom floor, 3 bays. They're same dimensions as here, and this is station 9 here, 14-foot doors. And we got 3 of them. One's for the fire truck. I put 2 fire trucks there, but one could be the ambulance and one could be for the other equipment that we have. We have lots of equipment, like I said. CIP truck in the trailer and all that was $300,000. And we're gonna leave it outdoors? I don't think so. I think it needs to be protected. It's a big asset, so we need to protect that thing. Second floor, this is generic second floor, says we're thinking about the future. I got 6 bedrooms up there, four, because the NFPA, they would like to see 4 firefighters. So we're gonna build with 4 firefighters and keeping in mind 2 more for the ambulance service. So we're thinking ahead, looking for the future. So that's 6 bedrooms. And that's all can be changed around. It's just an idea, it's nothing set in stone. My idea is 60 by 70. 60 by 70. Now, I went and talked to 3 contractors, and I asked them for estimates, how much would it cost to build this property? So this is what I come up with. I had 3 estimates, and the ranges are significant. From 107, and we're gonna do a CMU construction, which is concrete masonry unit, which is Cat 5, it's Cat 5. And then according to these 3 people, I got ranges from $170 a square foot all the way up to $300 a square foot. All right, so I just want to stay in the middle. I'm thinking, Mike, what do you think comes up with? Your contractor?
If we do a 2-story like you're talking, for the record, it'll be 300 plus a square foot, plus, 300 plus. There'll be nothing below 300 if we build a 2-story like this. Now, not to say we don't, I'm just telling you it'd be 300 plus. So
And
whatever.
we
contractor
won't
said,
know that until it's up to bid. And once the bids come back, then we have a better
No,
idea.
and I understand, you asked me a question, I'm just telling you for the record, it'll be 300 plus.
And what's the square footage?
Well, let me run this by
Yeah.
you. It's 8,400 square feet for a 60 by 70. 60 by 70 at $170 is $1.4 million, $1.428 million. For $200 a square foot is $1.68 million. Like, I don't know what the price is gonna come in, and then this guy was pretty confident. I told him we wanted 8-foot walls on the first floor, 8-inch walls on the first floor, 6-inch walls on the second floor, concrete roof. And he goes, yeah, he said, heck, goes, that's 170 for a rough estimate, 170. I was thinking 160, but make it safe, 170. The next guy gives me 225. He gave me 225 a square foot.
May I ask one question?
Sure.
Why 6-inch on the top? And why 8-inch on the bottom?
I can't answer that question. I don't
The
know.
contractor suggested or you did?
The contractor suggested that. And I don't know, you can go on that later on, but this is what he's telling me for a Cat 5. So all I told him was, my criteria was I wanted a Cat 5 building to sustain. I want it to be there for 100 years from now and still be there. And he said, this is the price that I got. He also suggested we go with a design built bid to make it cheaper for us. We're trying to keep our fiduciary responsibilities in place. We want to make sure that we can build something that's going to last and still keep in mind the cost of the building. That's important. That's why we've tried to go with no cost in the beginning, no cost to taxpayers can go on the park. That didn't work out, but that's what that is. But so talking to the, I went the chief, went to the firefighters, and they all agree that this design in front of you is the best design that they can come up with. This looks like a professional fire station, and it meets everything they need, all their needs. They couldn't think of anything else that we could put in there to make it they need to be safe and functional and efficient. So this is what they come up with. And again, they'll stay in the Bay House temporarily until it's done. Matter of fact, I even put in 2, if you look by the weight room, 2 little circles there. I know Commissioner Buckingham likes his fire poles, so I put 2 of them in there.
I've got one drawn.
But then again, there's, it's a cost factor. I talked to the manufacturer about the poles. Anywhere from a standard one where it has it stops, it doesn't completely seal it up, it's $20,000 a pole. Now, the best one, which is a Model 23, you're talking $40,000 a pole. So that might be something we scrap. I just put it in there because Commissioner Buckingham likes his fire poles. I don't sometimes agree with that, but that's okay. But that's what it is. So I did throw it in there because he liked it. Now, how do we pay for this? I talked to Commissioner Wagner about this, division chief, and I asked her to go outside the box. So, and boy, did she go outside the box, and I appreciate it. And I'm going to show you some papers right here about that. So this, guys, you guys all know where we're coming from. How we're going to pay for this. Let me ask you guys something. Station 10, we plan on leaving Station 10 anytime soon. We
Leaving?
leaving it? Are we gonna stay there?
Yeah, why would we?
Exactly. Station 9, are we gonna leave anytime soon?
No.
Exactly. Now look at our assets, in our asset fund. Every year we put in $23,000 towards the Crystal Beach Station. We have almost $1 million, $943,000 set aside just for Crystal Beach for the asset fund. If a hurricane came through, who pays for that? The insurance company pays for it. So why are we putting all this money into the asset fund? We got $943,000 sitting there. We already borrowed $500,000 from the asset fund. We need to pay it back. There's a way for that. 15-year loan, pay it back ourselves. Even 10-year loan. 10-year loan, if we pay that $50,000 a year. Ms. Catherine's already found ways to pay that $50,000 back. Am I correct?
Correct.
Thank you. We can pay that back, $50,000 a year, and pay that $500,000 back over 10 years. Now, we can use this almost $1 million here. Now, if you add in Station 9 into that and use that asset fund too, we got about $1.4 million. I'd like to keep some of that money in there to help cover it. We get a 5% deductible on our hurricane insurance, right? So we keep a couple $100,000 in there, and every year we're still putting a couple $100,000 in there. Use that money to offset the cost of this building. Does it make sense? It's an outside the box approach, but that's where I'm at, how I'll set it. Now, until we get we go out for bid and get quotes, Mike says it's gonna cost 300 plus. I disagree with that. I'm gonna take the people that I talked to's word and go with their estimates. Anywhere from 1.4 to $2.1 million. So that leaves about $1.8 million to come up with for the building. So we can build and pay for the new fire truck and all that stuff. So I want to show you another piece of paper I got, and why we should go to Cat 5 instead of staying in the Bay House. Hurricane Michael came through here about 1.5 years ago. It did a lot of damage. This is the fire assessment from that damages. And what was hurt and what was torn down and.
You gave me an extra one.
I don't want to go into a building and a month later get destroyed and then we're back out of business again. And we're starting from fresh. And I want to be able to have a building, go into it, hurricane comes in, we leave, if we have to leave for the day and come back the next day, as soon as the water resides, we're back in business and helping our taxpayers in the west end of town. I want to be able to do that. Can't do that from the Bay House if a hurricane came through. There's 6 feet of water in there, we just can't do it. And again,
Where did that number come from?
which number?
The 6 feet?
That's just what I was told, the guys have been in there. Firefighters told me that. So. Any questions on anything?
You've done a lot of good homework. But what I see is the asset fund, it could be drawn from, but it's put in there to keep up those buildings as well.
No, there's other things set aside for that. That's just for the building itself. If you look at it
Says
carefully,
improvements.
you look at the other things, like for the air conditioning, stuff like that, there's a line item for that too, for replacement. Things that are gonna be replaced on a natural basis, 15, 20 years, air conditioner and ventilation and signage, stuff like that. That's all in there too. It's all itemized. We're just talking about the building itself. The building stuff, we have insurance for that. We don't need that much money and for set aside for that. That's something as a board we have to look at. Even if it's not used for this building, but we need to look at it for the future.
Could I have a question?
Sure.
So we put this money aside just like we do for an apparatus. In a perfect world, if a hurricane come and 6 foot of water came through and wiped out the apparatus, then yes, the insurance will buy us a new one. But if they doesn't, in not a perfect world, and not 6 foot of water come in and wipe the truck out, we put that money aside so we can buy that truck, which is what we just did here not too long ago. Perfect world, if it took Station 10, took it out, well then yeah, insurance gonna pay for it, but it's not a perfect world. We still have to have that money, because that's a steel building, just like this is a steel building. And when you walk around these buildings, which I've done many a times, you'll start to see where the screws are rusting around and corrosion around, you know. It won't be too many more years down the road, but we're gonna have to reskin these buildings. When I say reskin, once you skin them, then you pull the sheet with the insulation out. You start pulling insulation out so you can put new insulation, put new sheeting on, but then you see some wiring issues that you gotta take care of, or some of this or some of that. It adds up. So I don't disagree with what you're saying, but I still think we need to leave a substantial amount sitting there in case it's not a perfect world for us, where we have to go do that. That's my concern, but go ahead, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
I mean, you make a good point, that we don't depreciate assets so that we can replace them in a catastrophic event.
Correct.
That's what insurance is for. We depreciate assets so that we recognize the consumption of the life of that asset over the life of the asset over a period of time.
Right.
And we don't have to figure out, is it reskinning a building or what is it? But a certain value, percent of the value of these buildings ought to be accrued and set aside so that when we have to do something, we have the money to do it. Not if it's an insurance event, but just normal wear and tear and consuming the building over time. I mean, what's the life of this building? Catherine, what do you have it as, 20 years?
Oh, it's set at 30 years,
Yeah, I was
Sorry?
gonna say,
30 years.
30, okay. And how far into 30 are we?
we're getting closer.
But they were built in 98, they
Yeah.
were built in 98.
The life
So-
dates are on the report.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah, you have it there,
The,
98.
And do we think that we'll completely replace this building in another 8 years, whatever that is?
But we'll skin it. We'll do some serious work to it. Do you agree, chief?
Yeah, there's some work that needs to be done at this
Yes.
station.
And that's not cheap work to do.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's cheaper to totally rebuild than to try to remodel the thing, but in this case, reskinning it and re-insulation is gonna be expensive.
That's another topic, but
Right.
we're talking about buildings. Right?
Oh, no, it's.
I'd like to see this one hardened up some, so, I mean, that's just some talk in the future. But,
This one definitely needs to be hardened up.
yeah, that's another discussion, but I'm talking about, I hate to use all of our funds up in events that we want to do some other things for other buildings, that, I mean, but I understand where you're coming from, you want to draw from as much as we can, so we don't have to finance.
So our debt,
Our debt,
Which is smart.
which is on that, which is smart. I'm just trying to say why we don't want to drain those funds.
In reference to the topic of, and it dovetails into both. So, the reskinning, which is very similar to when you said hardening, because when I spoke earlier and said that we leave,
We do leave.
right, we're not leaving, and I said why, it was the wind. We're not leaving because of the water, not this station.
Not this one.
Okay, we're not leaving this station because of the water. We're leaving this station because of the wind. If at some point in the future, if this commission felt we could do it and we could harden this facility to where it would be able to withstand Cat 5, I can tell you as fire chief, I wouldn't leave. I'm not leaving because of the water. I'm leaving because of the wind. I don't, where our elevation is, relative to sea level, it's gonna take a significant amount of water in order to be able to get up in the station, from a storm surge. Because we sit at what, I think the station sits at about 18.
We have a whole lot
19.
more problems to worry about if it gets over
Right.
So
So,
my
we're not leaving,
Right,
we're not leaving because of the water. I just want, so the commission
Yeah.
understands, when we leave, we're leaving because, of the
Right.
wind. We're not worried about the flooding here at the station. We're worried more about the wind.
And
And if we do leave, I want to have something to come back to.
exactly, in 95, when Hopewell come through, everybody left.
Yeah.
Everybody went to the north side of the.
That's correct.
And it was only because of the wind. Now, of course, I was one of the dummies, myself and Curtis Williams, remember Curtis? We stayed over here in the blockhouse at the sewer plant, but it was a little ugly, but But all this left because of winds, and Chief is 100% correct, and this does, in the soon future, we need to discuss that building.
But let's get back to the topic. But I'm with you, Cat 5, and, you know, like I mentioned earlier, having rooms and stuff on top. So, you know, I'm with you on that.
And another thing I didn't mention, and I forgot.
For the future.
I'm looking at this right here. If you look at this map right here, and I have a bigger version of it here, so you can see if you want to see it better. It's set up right now where we have a drive around. You know, drive down the side, there's 12-foot walk driveway through there, you drive down the back and you pull in. Now this is after tearing down and using that for parking. The only way this is feasible is tearing down the bay house and using that for parking. So this takes away the front part because you have to have so many parking spots for so many square feet. So in order for this to work, the bay house has to come down and put parking there. So it drives down that little concrete corner down there where it says loading zone down there. The old loading space, concrete loading space, that comes out right there, and we drive around and drive through the bays and come up through the front. And the reason why, and this is what the guys come up with, and administration come up with, because the reason is, I don't know if you know this, but 16% of all emergency vehicle accidents are from backing up. 16%, so it only makes sense to drive around and come up through. He said also, just for trucks, there's over, any truck backing up, every year, there's 20,000 accidents a year and 100 deaths a year from trucks backing up. When I was talking to the guys out, the firefighters out on Station 10, they can't tell you how many times that when the sun hits them, they can't see out the back and they have a hard time. One guy says, I came this close to being hit. He said, he needs to spot it. So accidents do happen. So if we can drive around and come up forward, that's a safety issue that we have to address also, instead of just backing in like every day. If we don't have to, we shouldn't do it. And that's why I left the 12 foot there. And I asked them how many feet you need to drive around. They said they need 10 foot with 12 would be better. So that's another issue that I did not bring up. But in order for that to work, you have to have so many parking spots. So the bay house we have to come down. And that's the issue. Other than that, it won't work unless that comes down. But it is a great idea and a safety issue for backing up.
Why do you have the building set back so far along?
Well, because see where if you look, see where it says 87 feet right there?
Yep.
Because in order to get 3 bays, it has to be I have to have at least 87 feet, and then it goes towards the water, it goes to 97 feet. So it has to be back so far. And also there's clean out stations up front here too, that's in the way. So in order to avoid all this stuff, we moved it back to where 87 feet was. And then from there, we can go back anywhere we want to, but it has to be at least 87 feet back. That's why. In order to get a 70-foot wide building in there and having the 5-foot offset on one side, 12 foot on the other side, and have 70 feet in the middle, I had to have at least 87 feet, if not more. That's why it's at there. Well, that's a good question. I would love to have a front.
Well, the other reason we talked about, I think, in the beginning, putting the building more towards the middle in front of the bay house was the distance for the guys to leave the building to get to the docks. You know, we didn't want to put the building way up in the front. Well, for a couple of reasons. You know, the city was gonna allow us at the time to back our truck into Calhoun Park because they didn't give us enough land to come around the backside and come in, so we had to back in. In this case, by putting the building where we're proposing to put it, that the chief and I went out there, and there's plenty of room for them to come around, drive around in our property in a circle, just like they do Station 10, and then back on into the building, which they do at Station 10, which they do in a lot of fireplaces or fire departments all over. Because of
Only if they have to be, if they're limited space.
right, well, in all your big cities and municipalities, a lot of them are like that because of space.
But we had the room to put a drive around. I think it's a great idea to put a drive around in. That's a safety issue. So, any more questions for me?
Thank you, did a good job.
Appreciate it.
So I guess my question would be, just say that we like the idea and we're going forward with this 3-bay project.
Mhm.
Now, are you saying we have to tear down the bay house in order to build this?
No, we're gonna use the bay house until it's completed. Once it's completed, in order to get a CO property, we have to tear it down in order to have the parking spots available. Or we have to either use the front building or the back building, until it's built. We have to have the guy staying there in order to.
Right, that was my main concern, is like, because we're
Well, it won't
talking
be the front
temporary
building.
come
They can't stay
July
in the front
1st.
building.
Front building.
No, it wouldn't be front building. They'd have to stay in the back building.
Not financial, if you got any questions, please ask Ms. Catherine, because she did a fantastic job, and I might have messed something up, and if anything you gotta say, please do, because anything that I missed.
I think the biggest thing that the commission needs to consider is what to do with that asset fund. Because there could be resources available from that. So you've had a discussion that, okay, maybe you need to keep some money in there for hardening up the stations or for additional work. The way this is set up, it's set up to depreciate the total cost of these buildings, the purchase cost. And that may not be what it should be. When we look at this currently, there's $1,500,000 already depreciated sitting in the asset fund for both stations. Is that too much? Is it not enough?
When you say total cost, you wouldn't be depreciating the land.
No,
Land doesn't go anywhere.
Well,
So
unfortunately, I cannot tell you what this states building. So I'm going to make the assumption that that's the building. I did not set up the depreciation. I do not have the files for that depreciation. So I can't directly answer that
Do
question.
we have an asset on our balance sheet called land? Or just-
I'm sorry, yes, we do, and it's right above it, okay?
Oh,
So
so
it is right above it. So it is segregated out as building.
And how long ago did we set that plan up?
We,
That
be-
asset up? I mean, what year?
we began the asset fund depreciation, I believe, in 2012.
Okay.
But we played catch up, so we're there as far as where we should be in our mark of our 30-year mark.
What
So
we planned it to be.
Is set on a 30-year depreciation. So we're at the right mark to be 8 years away from fully paying for
That we
the
started,
cost.
that we started our goal to be. That's where we're at now. We've caught
Yeah,
up. to
we caught
where-
it up.
But the issue is in 2012, building material and building labor was, I'm gonna say 40% more today. 40, maybe even 50%
Well,
in some
that's-
cases.
that's-
So,
Yeah, we don't
You know,
have
the
that.
point's even stronger than that, because actually the cost that's in there that drives the depreciation isn't the 2012 cost.
Right.
That's whatever the acquisition cost was, we put it on the books.
right.
And, that's the one thing that our auditors have told us with our depreciation, that it would really be more pure, but I don't know anybody that does this, that depreciates against replacement cost.
Correct.
Unless we want to sit down and guess what the replacement cost is gonna be, we use the original cost as the mark.
Right.
If I say something wrong, holler at me.
No, you're absolutely.
No, you're,
So, the fact building materials or labor, or whatever else has changed, that's fine, but we're just chunking along as if though we can replace the building
Right.
30 years later for exactly what we paid for it 30 years ago.
Sure.
That's a fallacy, but I don't know what else to do, so.
but, from where I am, from looking at, providing the commissioners with what can you afford, it's going to be determined on, are you satisfied with what's in here? Do you feel that what's in here is enough to maintain the buildings, to upgrade the 2 additional buildings? We're trying to look at, provide you with the most accurate number you can for what you can do with this new station. And this came up as, is there money in here that can be utilized?
Right.
So for me to provide you with your maximum number for the new station, I need to know where all the revenue is going to come from for it. Do we have to borrow all the revenue, or do we internally still have some? So it would be helpful for someone to sit down and say, okay, what are we going to need and when are we going to need it for these 2 stations? Because the method in which we depreciate it really is kind of irrelevant to what we're going to be doing for the buildings. Let's determine, what do we project that cost to be? And are we on target for it? Do we have too much? Do we have too
Yeah,
little?
I mean-
And that will help us determine.
We can put a fine point on it. The process we're using, you have to describe it as in 8 years, okay? But this building's gonna be worth 0, it'll be torn down, okay? And we'll rebuild it for exactly what we paid for it 30 years ago.
Right.
Both of those are wrong.
One of my concerns is I think we'd be a little irresponsible. I think this board remembers back a few years ago when our bucket was empty and, we struggled. Yeah, we struggled and we were, I think we're one of the only, I think we are the only fire department in the area that came back and is as financial sound as we are today. My concern would be if we take money that we've set aside for other issues and we use it to build what we called a substation, you know, it's not our main station, this is our main station, I think we'd be taking a chance of, especially not knowing where this economy is going to be going the next 4 to 8 years, to use everything we got, and knowingly that we have the ability, because we'd be pretty much debt free to go borrow money, but that's the last thing you want to borrow money if the economy goes in the tank. I just, you know, if things were a little bit different in Washington today, you know, I feel comfortable the way the last 4 years is going to exercise this thought, but I'm real concerned of we got money in the bucket that we didn't have a few years back and start pulling everything out to try to build a substation. I think is just, we need to be careful. That's all I'm saying. I think we need to be careful.
Right now, the interest rates are the lowest that they've been on average, so it's 2% or lower. So I think this the opposite. I think now it's time to
Borrow
borrow
the
money.
money right now.
Right now it's time to borrow money.
Put it on the books at a
And we
fixed
have to
rate.
think about our future too, and going with 2 bays, and then we get the ambulance service, and then we have the TRT truck, we get no place to put it. We're doing such a disservice. I think we need to spend a little bit extra and use the money and think about the future. I think the future is important too, not just now. And right now, when we do it right the first time, we don't have to worry about the future. We can do it right now.
Well, we always worry about the future, Bob. Yeah, what would help me a lot is if we could say, or had some way to look at this building and say, we're on a track to where it's gonna be like gone in 8 years. Okay, that isn't gonna happen. Well, what has got to be done in the next 8 years so that it's standing here 20 years from now? And when we do that, we reset the depreciation schedules, right? Because in effect, we've revived this building, we revived the life of it. It's gonna cost money to do that, probably not what it costs to buy it in the beginning or build it in the beginning. But we need to make that determination for here and for Station 10. And then we can look at it and say, well, okay, let's have a different schedule of depreciation. And we look at where we should be on that schedule versus now, and the difference is truly excess. And that would be good investment to put it into the substation. That's I suspect not an easy task.
Well, and it's not something I can do as a finance. I'm not into
Yeah.
construction. So, you know, that's why I'm coming to you and saying, I think this could be a resource.
Mhm.
However, I don't know how much of it, you know, looking at it from the hurricane standpoint, yeah, you can easily say this is our deductible. You know, but if you're looking at major improvements to a building to fortify it, to, you know, whatever you're going to call it, to stand up more to hurricanes, you know, I need assistance, I need guidance, I need numbers on that. And then I can tell you where we fall after that. One of the things when I was working with Commissioner Wagner was to shore up our 5-year projection. There is plans, the department hopes to possibly add a position in the upcoming year. That wasn't in the 5-year projection. So that changes the amount of money that the department can finance. Right now, I have the department capped at financing $2 million, not 2.5 that's in there. We can afford 2.5 for this year, but we can't afford it when we add another individual.
Right.
So that's total. So the commission's looking not only for the financing, how much money is needed for the property, you also need how much money is needed for an apparatus. Right now, that's estimated at an upward max of $600,000, and you need to look at what are we going to do with the money that we borrowed from the asset fund, which is almost $5,500. So those items combined is about $3 million. Well, we can only borrow $2 million at the max. So you know, depending on where you want to be with construction time frame, we need an extra $1 million. Now, when we were talking about the asset fund has you know, we were looking at it and say, okay, well, you know, Station 9, Station 10, it shows 1.5 million in there. It is important to keep in the back of your mind, every year, more depreciation gets put in there. Right now, that's about $90,000 just for those two items. Every year we put that money in there. So, you know, what's going to be the target? How much do we really need for these two?
Right.
I don't know that. I don't know if 1.5 is enough. I don't know if it's too much. But I think that would very much so help. The asset fund averages $4 million in it every year. I mean, we average. Some years a little lower, 3.7 million. Some years we end up with 4.2 million. We're averaging right there, holding 4 million in there. The asset fund has a floor that we need to maintain, which is 3 months of operating expenses, which is 1.5 million. We turn assets on a rotating basis. The schedule, but we're maintaining that. So if this method, which we're doing for these two buildings, is going to be the equivalent of the cost to do the maintenance, when you truly feel that, hey, we need to fortify these buildings, then it is what it is. If not, is there money in there that can be spent? Because, I mean, building a fire department is not a cheap item. So we're really trying to figure out where all our money is. Any type of impact funds that come in, you know, we're hoping to apply, but we can't predict what those are going to be.
In reference to, let's say, the reskinning or whatever maintenance might need to be made, reskinning is something that we haven't done, but we've replaced things that needed to be replaced in the station, and you'll see it reflected in this asset fund.
Right.
So I went through here, started marking those things that you start to see. You see air conditioners replaced because of this cost. You see it's put into the asset fund, and then we depreciate off that asset. But originally, it was built with air conditioners. It's not like you didn't have it. We just replaced it. And then when we replaced it, we added that cost into our asset fund because at some point, the air conditioner is going to need to be replaced again. So then before we start to depreciate, so we have those funds. So then when it does go bad, we can do that. We can do the same thing with, let's say, the reskinning part. It would be the same thing. We get this station reskinned to whatever degree that happens to be. Whatever that cost of money is, we'll go into it and we'll probably do a look back and say it took this long for it, what we're going to project it for. And then we'll depreciate that out over a given period of time as well into the asset fund. So that way, over that 20, 30 years, whatever we anticipate it would be, we'll pay it back into that asset fund. So we do it routinely, just maybe not at the amount of money that it might be to reskin the building, but we do it for a variety of things. Concrete pads out front, that was part of the building when we built it, we ended up costing us $70,000 to redo those. And now it's in the asset fund being depreciated out. Being that it was done a little differently this time, I think a little better than the first time we did it. I think those concrete pads going to be there for a very long time. So it's just that I was just pointing out that we do that routinely, whether it's reskinning, whether it's replacing the air conditioners, concrete pads, and then it's put right back into the asset.
Right.
One more thing before I end up, I'll pass it to Jack next, but you can see I did this myself, designed it. If you guys like the idea, I can get a conceptual design done for $3,000 to $5,000. I know you guys approved it last meeting, you guys gave permission, but I didn't want to waste the money if this is something you guys aren't even interested in. If you're at least interested, I can get done for $3,000 to $5,000. I know we spent $10,000 last time to get a conceptual design done, and this guy said he would do it for between $3,000 and $5,000. So just keep that in mind if you think this is something you're interested in.
Is the weight room on the bottom or on the side?
Second floor.
Second floor.
Second floor. Clean area. So I got it.
Leah, I appreciate everything you say about doing this and how it ought to be all that the firemen need, all that the West End needs. But at the end of the day, we're sitting in the middle of the firemen who have needs and the taxpayers who have resources. And we got to sort it out. I love the idea of let's make sure it'll be there when we all come back from Cat 5. And I love that. I would hate to come back and find our substation standing and Station 9 and Station 10 are gone because we didn't invest the money we needed in these buildings. this is one of 3 buildings that we have. And it's not a thing unto itself. It's part of the network of fire stations that we have. But, when you ask visioning, I mean, just back up and start. Well, my number one thing, and I guess that's what I'm talking about, is it's gotta be affordable. I mean, I don't want to go back to where we're draining off the pension fund every year. We need a new bunker gear, but we got to wait 3 more years because we can't afford it. Or, we're leaking oil from our engines, but we don't want to go back there. Not that we were there, but we don't want to be in that position. So we just need to be very careful when we start slinging around millions of dollars that we're really sure that it's affordable. The second thing is, in looking at all of this, is this another Station 9 or is this a substation? I mean, I look at it as, for me, what I want out of this station is the first 15 minutes. Because if we need 2 more apparatuses there and I've got a big structure fire, they're coming from here in 10-2. I mean, we're not trying to make it unto itself and nobody else ever goes into the west end. But right now we can't get there soon enough. So if this thing can be designed to take care of the first 15 minutes of any rescue we've got to do, forget water, that's self-contained. Then that's kind of where I would think about it. But when I look at 3 big bays, and I know we want to put stuff everywhere, but does it have to be bay? That's a very conventional box with 3 big doors. I mean, the property is a different shape than that. Is there something we can do to have 2 bays and then some other place to park the truck or the trailer or something in that huge depth of property that we've got? Does that cost more? Does it cost less? I don't really know. But I want to keep thinking about this as part of 2 things, part of a network of fire response centers. And secondly, I like your idea that we make sure that we're able to be expansive. I mean, would very much like to get into the transport business, and that says we need a bay, but a smaller bay, okay, for an ambulance type. We don't need one that we can put engine 9 in, right? And we need a smaller one. And I suspect our truck and trailer would go in a smaller bay. Does it have to be? And then I noticed you got one that's 12 foot, and I guess that's the small bay.
Right.
But I think about it, I keep thinking I need 15 minutes worth of capability here. That's what I need. And then I said expandable. I mean, we got fire rescue today. We got water rescue. That's easy. But there are going to be future services. And you're looking at the TRT now. We're looking at perhaps transport. What else? I don't know. I asked Mike to make sure we leave room for a helipad back there. Because it may be that our problem in our area is that there are no hospitals here. And, and there could be a time when we transport by helicopter. I don't know. But with this nice piece of property, let's shut options off, is all I'm saying. The $4.5 million plus an apparatus. I mean, what are we looking at? 5.2 million? That's pretty steep for a substation. Now, I'm not saying this is wrong. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying, we really got to think real hard about, is that affordable without draining resources from everything else we need, this station 10? But I like the design. I mean, I like the way we laid it out. I think that's good.
And another thing I didn't mention what part of it was, because we have our beach safety, and then they're gonna want to put stuff down there too. So we're gonna have room for them also.
Here?
On this station too, we're gonna have stuff down there. They're gonna have stuff. We got on 10 now. On 10, you been out there? Have you seen other racks behind Station 10? There's no room out there. Hopefully someday we'll buy that property out there. I don't know if it's gonna ever come true or not. They keep promising, and never deliver. So
But I don't think we need a $300 square foot building to put circuit boards in. Do we?
it's just one more thing.
Well, there's one more thing, but let's put one more. That's a big lot. Let's put storage facilities in the back that we can put all the beach stuff in. We probably do that for $20 a square foot. I don't, you're the driving guy. I mean, that's the way I like to kind of think about it, is that we get started with this thing, and the next thing you know, we've got a building that's everything we could ever want. We just will tear down Station 9 and 10 because we got it all down there. And now we've moved completely from one end of the district to the other end. Great for the west end, not so good for the east end, right?
And another thing you gotta think about is the maintenance
Oh, yeah.
asset fund, it goes along with it, so.
Yep.
I'm not trying to.
No, I
I'm just
understand.
trying to share.
I don't really know what the right answer is, and I'm not saying I support it or don't support it. I like the design of it, I like the extra bay, I'm just wondering, do they have to be lateral to each other? Can we have two bays for big apparatus, and maybe the smaller bay is back before the turn happens, in the back, or something? Got a ton of room back there. Now, if that doesn't save us any money, then why bother? If it doesn't make the fit into the lot better, why bother? If you only had two bays, you could move it forward, and there'd be plenty of room for a big turn for the trucks to come around. And at the back of that circle, we could put the rescue truck and trailer in another kind of building that isn't built to the same, I don't know what option that would, if it would help us or hurt us,
That's
honestly.
why we're having this meeting.
Or kicking it around. Those are good points, because
Yeah, I thought,
you don't have to have you can always move stacked vehicles in there when it came to storms to house them.
Right.
But to operate on a day-to-day basis, it could just be
yeah, I thought,
100
and that's a good point, Bob, that's a good point about the new rig that we just bought with the trucks coming and the trailer. We spent a lot of money on that, but please keep in mind that, a rig like that, it would probably be more protected by the environment by being over here in this station than against the water. Living on the water, I do know that, when the winds get blowing, it brings that salt up. We get salty vehicles all the time where it's not as bad in the station here. So it might be something, that's a good point you said, it might be something when we do look at reskinning this, we do tighten this up to make it Cat 5, which is very doable.
Yeah.
You take the skin off, and where the purlins are now, they're probably every 6 feet apart. You put them every 3 feet apart. You just add more purlins and more girts,
Yeah.
and that just tightens the building up, and you put your skin back on it. But at that time, maybe we do, add a little place back here. We had talked once about trying to find a way to put the hard surface over top of the retention pond. That's very, very doable.
Believe it or not, we've got that budgeted, the plan portion of that budgeted. So
We
that
talked
way we
about
have
this,
plans drawn to be able to do that, because we do need more space.
Right.
Well, we
And
can always
it's
come
very doable.
out here too, couldn't we?
Right.
Sure.
We can always come forward.
We
so.
can bring the truck forward into it, and then they come behind it. But, all of that stuff is so doable. You just gotta think outside the box, because the average designer doesn't think that way. You gotta get outside and figure out how it can be done, and it's all doable. The chief and I have talked about it. I think that's why you budgeted money now, but we can bring that back to you all in the soon future. So I like what you're saying. I do agree it needs to be put away, but as far as beach safety stuff, like Jack was saying, yeah, there's room on this existing property, that we could build some very inexpensive square footage to put the surfboards and the things that they use, on this existing property, but that's a good point. Thank you.
You do, Joe?
Yeah, good.
Time for you to speak. You've been quiet over there.
Well, I'm listening, and trying to sort it out. And I admire Bob's tenacity and diligence on all this and taking out of the box and everything. That's great. My concerns, I've been probably pretty proud of how this board has performed in the 20+ years I've been here. In other words, we have basically no debt. It was even brought up at a city council meeting that the city's owed $25 million in debt, yes, to justify it, and they want, but anyway, and I think that shows that to the general public that this department is being run and financially, and it's doing good. Because like Mike said, we came back from the downtime, and not many places could do that and do it as quick as we did. Something that needs to be considered too is, the firefighters and stuff, they might be all for, let's get it, this and this and this, but at the same time, it's gonna come up where they're gonna want a pay increase. And they're gonna want insurance and everything, but we've got money we owe. So, it's gonna be less to negotiate with on that side. And that's something we've gotta do all the time. It's there. With the acquisition of the property that we're trying to acquire at Station 10, is gonna be another cost. And I just want us to be financially stable going through this. I don't want to get to where we have to go back to, I don't want to ever do that again. Go back and ask the taxpayers to raise our millage rate, because they're not going to do it. They don't care anything about this department until they need us, okay? I think that to me is the biggest thing. As far as the property, there have been some great ideas floated around here. I love it, but why can't this be done in stages?
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't, to go in and try to do it all at once, let's do it a little bit at a time. And you can build buildings and have them added on to at a later date. You can construct it to where it'll be a 2-story building, but it's only 1 floor right now. So there's a lot of opportunity there I see, but at the same time, I want us to be frugal and mindful of the other situations that's gonna pop up over the next few years. And we really don't, like Mike said, we don't know what the economy's gonna do. And I just think we ought to be very frugal with our money on this and look at all the options.
I anticipated that. So another option would be, is it for us to put like a small steel building up for $100,000, $200,000 and live in it temporarily, live in the Bay House temporarily, see how it works out. If hurricane comes and wipes it out, we're not out that much money we can save for the next 2 or 3 years and save our money and then build a building that's adequate for us to work in, instead of spending $1 million for something that in 5 years is not gonna work. Just build something temporarily, a temporary building, just to house the fire truck. And just,
Yeah.
and then be done with it. And then like you said,
That's
down
great.
the road and have to be financially responsible and have it.
That's great, and something that we need to look into too is with this water access. You've got the county, you got the state, yeah, you got the FWC, and you got the sheriff's department and everything. Forget about the Coast Guard station, that's federal.
Yeah, we can't touch
We're
it.
not, nothing's gonna be done with that. We've got to set it up ourselves, and we should be able to deal with the county and maybe get some money out of this to help support this property from the county and from the state. They're FWC boats, and we could build docks down there, have lifts for all their boats too. And
That's a great idea. We
Kind of
talked about-
parking,
Mike, how long would it take to build a steel building, a simple building?
Well, I was gonna respond to that comment. Bob, the problem is we're in what they call the city of Destin, and I don't know if the chief did find out what we are able to do outside that or not. Meaning, or we have to obey by all their regs, so I know you were checking into that with DC.
Yeah, he hasn't got it back with me with the answer. That's something he's gonna have to do
Yeah,
some research.
I'm almost positive, and I could be wrong, because a few years back with Richard Griswold, when he was the general manager of Destin Water Users, and I was involved with those guys very heavily for 30 years. He thought the same thing, because they were giving Destin Water Users such a hard time about improving their facility at the wastewater treatment plant and adding a couple more buildings. So his idea was just to help them, just go build it and worry about them later. Come to find out you can't. It is in the city Destin limits. So to build something temporary is not gonna happen. That's not gonna happen. When I say temporary, Bob, because if you want to build a steel building, well, a steel building is fine, but the problem with a steel building is they have an uplift issue because they don't weigh anything. So when you have an uplift issue, you don't just pour a 4 or 6 inch concrete slab, you have to build these great big, what they call column pads. And that's where every column sits. You fill, they could be anywhere from a 3x3 to a 10x10 that's 4 feet deep, all this rebar, blah, blah, blah. Nothing's temporary. You're still gonna have to put your ADA bathrooms, you're still gonna have to comply with all electrical, you're still gonna have to comply with everything. So nothing's gonna be, you're not gonna build, and let's just say 3,200, because this is 8,400 square feet, right?
Yes.
You're not gonna build a 2,000 square feet building for $100,000. You're just not gonna do it. A steel building today with some sheetrock, with some insulation, similar to what we got sitting here now, but just a far smaller version, you're still looking at $200 a square foot. Because you gotta keep in mind, what your concept is a great idea. I don't, man, I thank you for what you've done. It's not my time, Marlon, you go ahead and no. I think you've done a great job, I do. In a perfect world, it'd be wonderful. But the problem with building something that big now, that means that the entire site plan that we have has to be completely redone. Our stormwater is gonna have to be completely redone. There's, so much is being added to it, and we're only allowed to put so many square feet. Back up. The amount of square feet that we're gonna add if we keep the existing bay house and we remove the front building, which is a suggestion because it's really not worth much. The parking requirements. The parking requirements is not just based on how many employees you have. That, they don't go by that. They go by square footage. And the square footage depends on, is it storage? Is it warehouse space? Is it a restaurant? Is it single family? Is it multifamily? Is it, it all changes in that. In a case like what we have, it's gonna be a minimum of 1 per 100 square feet, 1 parking space for 100 square feet. So the design that we came in, and trust me, Bob, I can't stress you enough, thank you for everything you've done, because I know you put a hell of a lot of time in this. Why do I know that? Because I know how much time I put in this. And God, I don't want to keep talking to you. It's your time. Why don't I just wait till it's my turn?
We'll just get it off your time.
Okay.
You just spun it back to him.
Like, do I have to?
You just spun it back to him.
Yeah, okay. One thing that we did, guys, I can use this, can I, Chief, the board?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah, you can
Okay.
basically.
What we did, and it's real similar to what you have, Bob, here's our property, and here's the water, is the little building up front, it's gone, take it out. That's gonna be parking out here. The driveway comes up, Chief, correct me if I'm wrong, I think we figured 45 feet, and it would turn and come around where the building sits right here. And this was 40, 50?
I think you had it 50.
I think it was. I think it's-
But I can,
Well, what it is, so I can show you guys, is what we are trying to do on the site plan. If you look at the site plan, what we were trying to do is leave the existing parking on the side here and the drive-through, so we didn't have to do any more
Well,
stormwater
if you don't have that, I've got your plan if you want it.
Oh, you do? Okay, thank you. Well,
It's in 3 seconds, I took pictures of it.
yeah, okay.
It's all one, it's all one. It's all one.
It's all one?
Yeah,
It's all one picture. I had to take pictures of it. So it goes like this.
All that time you put in, you couldn't help me out? Put it on one?
I thought you'd have it already.
Okay. All right, so here's a perfect picture of it, if you guys can see this. What we were trying to do is you drive up into this area right here. This particular area is right here. This is all existing parking, existing stormwater, existing landscaping, existing everything. So hopefully we didn't have to change any of this to come back into the bay house, the living quarters. What we were designing was, this is a 2-bay system, one for the fire apparatus and one for hopefully an ambulance one day. In the back, the battalion chief, which most likely will not be here at this station, he'll be at this station, most likely because this is the main station, correct me if I'm wrong. But for the future, we had an ability, he could come in, pull up in here and back in here. But this is 80 foot deep, it's a big building. So in reality, this building that we drew is a 4-bay system.
Right.
3 bays, which can be used by apparatuses, okay? The 4th building, which the chief and I had talked about, of making this be the decon room, where the.
Washroom.
Yeah, all the equipment. I mean, you're talking a big bay, you're talking, it's a 3,200 square foot building. No, it's bigger than that. 3,200 square feet, give or take. So you got 800 square foot bay right here to put the washroom, the this, the that, which is big. It's a big bay. With the ability, please keep in mind that this building was being designed out of a 12-inch CMU, not an 8-inch. The reason 12-inch, you can get a 500 rating out of it all day long, a Cat 5. I'm glad, this is part of us having this conversation. This was gonna be a single-story building, house them in the house. With the ability to put a second story on top of this with 8-inch CMU above it. I'm sorry, 12-inch CMU above it. Why 12-inch CMU? Cat 5. You're not gonna blow this thing down. 12-inch steel poured solid is not going nowhere. And then one of the options was for us, was if we build it this way, it's the cheapest way to build it, obvious, number one. Number two is we have an option to put a concrete roof on top of it now. Instead of putting a roof structure on top of a 14-foot tall building, we go ahead and put a solid concrete roof on it. Please keep in mind, I would put a hole right here in the concrete structure for the pole later.
For the pole later.
Yeah, for the pole later, you don't want to come back and cut a hole in there. And have the ability in 8, 10, 12 years to put the second floor on top of it. Not a problem to go get a quote on what it would cost to put the CMU concrete roof, first floor, 12-inch CMU, second floor all the way around, and put a roof on top of it, and just leave it in what they call an envelope for now, and worry about building down in the future when the money's available. You know, that's an option. But doing it the way that we had proposed to you, you also have one more option, which is the way I would prefer to see it, because I'm not big on a whole bunch of 2-story buildings. We had no choice at the next door at the park, because that's all the footprint we had. But in this case, we could, in the future, very, very easily, could a CMU block. We could add another total bay over here on the side, demo the bay house in 10, 12 years, or if it was to get demolished, we come down the side and we build the living quarters on the side. Still have the drive to come in the back, put parking back in the future. That would be my number one way to design it. Yes, correct. Being that it's a concrete block building, at the elevation of this, of course, is a lot higher than the bay house finished floor now. When you design this, being that it's a 12-inch CMU building, you design all the doors and stuff to be waterproof. So if the water was to come up, it's not gonna get in the building, and it's very easy to do that. This is just my opinion, I think the design, we worked a lot of hours on this. This is not something we just drew up and threw at it. My advice would be build something like this. Keep in mind, you still have 3 usable bays now. You do, you have 3 usable bays. Plus you have your decon bay in the middle, whatever you want to call it. In the future, 8, 10, 12, whenever, or we just get a bunch of money and we decide we want to build the living quarters on it, guys, it's easy to attach to this building. Super, super, super easy to attach to this building. Super. I like Bob's concept. But when our first meeting, when we found this property on public record, we simply said, and I'll say it again, it was a lot of money for the land. Everybody said, wow, but it's got $500,000 worth of assets sitting there. And when you look at $500,000 asset, I'm not talking about.
Where's the asset coming from?
Okay, I'm not talking about just the building. I'm talking about a complete site. What it would cost to come in and build that complete site. Building, parking, stormwater, lighting, gas line, water line, sewer line, everything you're talking about. There's $500,000 sitting there easy. You can't build that. You cannot build that for $500,000. You can't do it. So it's real hard for me, I don't know about y'all, but for me to sit here now and discuss the possibility of taking that $500,000 asset out of there. I just think and I don't know which firefighters you've talked to, but I've talked to a couple of them. And when I've talked to them, they're super, super excited. Some of them have been in many of the weddings and been in functions at the Bay House and loves it. Would give anything. Well, even the chief said, man, find me a spot to make me a little office over here. When I come over here, I got one little office, which we're gonna do, because there's no reason why you shouldn't have a little place in the corner there somewhere. But he's got a little office to go in and talk to the guys.
Can you show us the design, how you plan on putting the bedrooms, our meeting room?
Well, the problem is I don't
refrigerators?
have the footprint, so I can't show you. If I had the plan of it, I'd be more than happy to show you.
Can you have it for next meeting?
Of course I can. Of course I can.
Because I don't think there's enough room in that big house for everything.
Well,
you're saying that's gonna be done.
but please keep in mind, Bob, I'm gonna go back to what Jack just got done saying. We bought this for a substation. We didn't buy this for the main station. And I get it, don't get me wrong, I get it, and like I said, I thank you for what you've done, because I know how much time I've got in it, I can tell how much time you put in it.
And I know you put a lot of time with the park, you put a lot of time.
Right,
And I
but,
appreciate you too.
right, the problem is I just can't vote on spending that kind of money to build something as big as this is, 8,400 square feet. I mean, Bob, it's $185 a square foot to build a 2x4 structure, single-family resident out of 2x4s with hardy board siding or brick. It's $175, $185, $200 a square foot to build a house. I'm not talking a residential house here, man.
Yeah, I'd like to see the plan for the big house, how you got it set. I wanna see the office.
Okay,
for the
and
chief.
my
I wanna see
understanding is-
How many bedrooms you plan to put in there?
How many people? hold on.
We talked to 4 people,
Yeah, Chief, how many would reside down there?
3 by 4 later, right?
3?
Depends on at what point. Initially, when we go down there, 1 July, whatever, it's gonna be 3.
And
But
what about-
eventually you'll add the 4th person, correct? You're hoping to.
Yes, and yes, meaning yes, we'll add a 4th person, and yes, we'll add 2 more, so there could be the potential of having 6 folks down there.
When the ambulance.
Could be.
When the ambulance up to,
And I get all that, and at that time, I think that's when we ought to look back and say, okay, maybe we'll add a little bit more to it,
but that could be.
Well, that's when we're going to the
We're
county
hoping-
too and saying we need.
We're hoping to get the ambulance by the end
Bingo,
of the year.
thank you.
Am I right?
Exactly.
Am I right? We're trying to get the ambulance by the end of the year. If I
Yeah, but what
vote
I'm
well-
saying is, that's when we have a conversation with the county and say, we need finances.
Yeah,
We're not
and I
funding this whole
agree with
project.
But
that.
we can't guarantee that. That's no guarantee.
Well, we can't guarantee we're gonna get the ambulance either.
No, we can't.
So,
So,
so we
so,
would even take it.
so if you guys want to build a substation, this is just my opinion, and our way of building was gonna be, like I said, 12-inch CMU, we were gonna paint it, colors, everything to make it look the old look, and like what you're saying, which I'm 100% on top of that. I'd love to see it the old school look. Because that's what we were selling the taxpayer when we were trying to put it at the park. That old nostalgic, keep it old look. So if you want to build something we can afford now, this is my suggestion.
I don't think the Bay House is gonna work, Mike. I really don't.
Bob, it's been there 70 years and the
Well,
city's
I'm
only
not
gonna
saying
last.
for the house people, the house, the 3 shifts, the house with 3 refrigerators, the house with washer and dryer, the house, the chief, the house, the meeting room. I don't think it's big enough. You're gonna have to show me a plan on paper. Next meeting, please bring to us the layout, how you can do that.
Please keep in mind, Bob, the idea of the meeting room, the idea of the chief's office, the idea of this, the idea of that is our wish list. That's what we love. Right now, we just spent $2.4 million on a piece of property that we told that the taxpayer that we're gonna be able to use the existing building as a housing. And I believe unless Michael comes in here, that thing will be here another 70 years. I mean, there's buildings all over, old buildings. I think it's got a unique piece to it and it's got a value to it. And it's something that we can get in for minimal repair work in there. For under 100 grand, we can do anything we want inside that building and use it.
If you can get us the inspection reports, and make sure there's no asbestos, make sure there's no wiring. I'd like to see that next meeting too.
Well, I mean, you
Well, I
could,
think that's something we can set up at another meeting.
Right.
Yeah, next meeting,
Right.
next meeting, yeah. Just very-
that's not, I don't have a problem with
Well, I
that.
can tell you, he won't have it insured if it had aluminum wire.
Well, I don't know.
That's just another.
We're gonna
I know that for a
have
fact.
guys living there.
Right.
No, he's lived there, so I wanna make sure it's safe for the guys.
Well, Bob, I promise you, we'll make sure of that, buddy. That's not, look, I've said many times, I'm one of the first guys that support our guys to have every tool they need to do their job.
Exactly. We've
And I
all
want to
said that.
protect our guys. But the one, like I said, the ones I've talked to, they're just, it's gonna end up being a fight. They're gonna want, that's gonna be the favorite station to be. Even though it's the busiest, that's gonna be the favorite station to go
See,
to.
I disagree. I talked to the guys, like when I've talked, everyone, not one person didn't like the idea. They liked temporarily, they did not like the idea of living there more than a year. Not one.
More
person.
than here?
It'll wear off after a while.
Oh, trust me. Yeah, it'll wear off. But hey,
Here-
look,
Here's the bottom line
Yeah,
is,
I was just gonna,
the bottom line is, we purchased that piece of property to do, just like Jack said, to take 15 minutes of response time,
correct.
make it quicker to the people. We spent 2.5 with
2.4.
closing costs and all that. We've got a perfectly good structure that all we need to do is have them housed right now. Have bathroom, place to rest, and on their shift, and place to, recline and watch TV and relax between calls.
Is there even a shower in there right now? Is there a
Yeah,
shower in there?
Well,
There's
if
one
not,
shower.
we can install a shower.
Yeah, there's one shower, there's
Yeah,
two bathrooms.
one shower.
Yeah, there's two bathrooms.
And I don't want it to be, a rough place for them to work, but I'm just saying that,
There's nothing
It's
that we
livable.
can add on to it.
yeah, there's things that we can do to remodel it inside to make it livable and suitable for a fireman to do 24-hour shifts there.
Still low lying, still on the first floor.
I personally have never seen a flood there, personally.
Well, if it's gonna flood that Bay House, it doesn't
We got
matter what
bigger
you got up
problems.
there. There's not any elevation change between there and the street.
But the
So
first
it's
floor,
different.
first floor would be vacated because it would be all from the trail, for the equipment.
And please keep in
The
mind,
is 14 feet up, so.
Well, I meant,
Mike, please keep in
Mike
mind,
was
if it
there.
gets that bad, we have a hell of a lot more problems to worry about in this town. And if it got that bad, this commission is smart enough to call the chief and say, Chief,
Bring them back.
call the RV place up there and get us 2 trailers. Back them up there and let's give the guy something to live in for now and give him something nice. I mean, look, I've been involved in emergencies many, many times. If we gotta house, if we gotta do something, it can be done within 24 hours, period. I'm not gonna worry about what's gonna happen down the road with the Bay House.
What can happen?
Right, in my eyes, it's more of a history in Florida, history in Destin. And for us to be able to purchase that piece of property and put a quote substation that we need to respond within 15 minutes, we're blessed. We're blessed to be able to buy that piece of property. We're blessed. That is one bad ass piece of property. It's unique, it's cool. So that's just my 2 cents. I'm only 1 out of 5. But I do thank you, Bob. In the perfect world, I think it's a great idea.
Well, I tell you, let me back up to where I started out. We got a piece of property that looks like this table.
Mm-hmm.
And we gotta build something on it that is like this table, that wide right there. Doing an 80-foot building on an 97 foot or whatever it is. The Greyhound Bus Depot in downtown San Francisco has buses in and out every day. And they have a little tiny strip of land like this, and the buses come in here, and their bay is at a 45-degree angle like this. And there's just a rack of bays like that. So they can come in here all day long and go in, okay? We don't need 5 places to come in, and they go out right over there. Have we thought of something like, that's so much better suited to this shape of property. Does it give us any options? I don't know.
We thought about that. You mean bring the building farther forward, is what you're
I'm
saying?
saying change the building.
Well, we did. The chief and I looked at that. The problem with putting the building farther away from the housing is the distance from
I'm
the
talking about
building.
housing yet. I'm just saying, let's just start with the concept of we need bays, 2, 3, whatever else. And we're very conventional. We have a box and we have bay, bay, bay. And to get in, we gotta go around and we gotta have basically 3 paths in. And we're using a whole lot of land.
But that's not the design that we've got. What we've got is,
Redesign.
what we got by using what we have, Jack, is this. Okay, so the guys come in off of Calhoun,
Right.
they make this suite,
Right.
they back right up into these 2 bays. These are the main bays. This is for the truck, this is for an ambulance. Because I think we all agreed that this is a 1 truck, 15-minute, get in there and go.
Yeah.
They could have the ability to drive around the back, pull up in here and back in here, so they can come out if the battalion chief or we get a second ambulance. He'd sit here and he'd just turn around and go out. So it's basically what you're saying. It's just instead of them coming around the back and going into the building, they're coming out and just backing up right there.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, like that, because you're not.
Because all I'm saying is we got 2.4 plus closing costs of dirt. And what this design does is pile it all up in a very conventional way, in a very good way, but it doesn't seem to take advantage of what we have. It's very, very conventional. I love the 3 bays because we'll end up using them someday. But if there's a way to put them in there where we can add bays later,
And that's where I was going with it. Good
or,
point.
yeah, and because the second real issue I have is I'm where Tommy is. I think there's got to be some sort of phasing, some sort of walk our way through this stuff. I wouldn't need to come out of the box and put a $6 million station all neat and tidy, boom, let's open it up.
Right.
We need to have something, and then we can add to it, expand it, and we need to think through what all that's gonna be so that it's efficient to do it that way. But I agree, we ought to be figuring something like that out. I don't have an answer.
And I'd like to pay cash as we go.
And that was part of the design with this, was to be able to, right now, this comes this way and this comes around the back, like I just showed you, okay? And then hits the Bay House.
Yep.
That was the ability to come here, add the third building for the housing, single story. They can still come around like Bob's got shown there now. I think he's got 12 feet where we could take around the back. If the Bay House down the road was ever to come out, then we put more parking back here in the back for the employees. They all work back here. Here's their housing, here's the truck, the 4 bays. And then the trucks come out. You're not gonna be able to, me, I think if we got a $2.4 million piece of property. If we was to put everything right here and make this drive come all the way back and these fire trucks drive back here by the water and come in the bay, I think that's just a wasted piece of property to put a drive back there.
What's the issue with getting housing too far away from the truck?
Well, that's if we were gonna take the building,
Farther forward.
yes, if we were gonna leave the Bay House back here in the back and put the building up here where all the guys they pulled in and backed in.
Yep.
The distance between here and there.
Yep.
Was, why?
It's
What?
increased,
Yeah, you had the answer.
anytime you separate,
He had the answer, I forget what it was.
what it really is anytime you separate your personnel from your apparatus, it increases your response time.
Yeah.
So if you put them in front of the property, they've got to get from where they're at to the front of the property, increases your response time. You put half of that, decreases that by half, and so on and so forth. So
Why do we put them on the second floor? They gotta come all the way down a flight of stairs.
you put it in a fire pole that I can promise you got
My
the
point is,
sensors off of.
let them sleep in the truck.
Right.
Don't put them in a hotel down the road. There's a whole lot of shades of gray in the middle of that stuff.
True, you know, for $2 million, we might just rent a hotel room. We get a lot of hotel
Well,
rooms.
my point is, if one of those points is fixed and your maximum distance is 50 feet, set it 50 feet.
Right.
I mean, I don't think the argument, it's too far. It's only too far because you made it too far.
Right, well, the one that we've got here, Jack, is not too far. It's right out the back door. It's right there.
You gotta add the little screening area too on that building. The screening area in the front of the Bay House, you got as a square, there's an addition to that.
Oh, I know that.
But now, is that gonna be the,
not an
I was
architect.
told that was gonna be the weight room or something like
I
that.
said it's ability, if they wanted to use it for, they can use it. Bob, it's got a foundation and a complete roof. We could close the walls and put bedrooms there if they want. We could put the living quarters right there. We could
And
put
who's
this.
to say we gotta get rid of that building in the future? You could add on to the
I
station
wouldn't.
with the bedroom, just leave that building there for
It might be good.
half-size room or whatever.
Right, we might put the weight room
Man, it's just
outside, and that particular area you're talking about, Bob, that could be the TV room, that could be more bedrooms, that could be whatever you want. It's open air.
Yeah.
Enclosed easily.
I have a concern, we spent $2.4 million, I have a concern we're gonna make it look like a volunteer fire department, and it still sticks in my head.
Volunteer? It's gonna have history to it.
Show me another building, another fire department that has a separation, a building not attached to it, to the existing building. I don't
Don't
think
get
there is
another
one.
fire department on a $2.5 million waterfront.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, they don't.
Which volunteer fire department is there?
Matter of fact, there's one I think in Milton, I think it's building on.
Mexico City Beach or whatever? I mean,
They have one underwater.
they're almost in the water too, but that's.
But I'm saying, it's stuck in my head, volunteer fire department, and
Bob, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Have you walked over and walked that entire property in the last 30 days?
sure have.
And what's the condition of it, to you, in your opinion? When you walk around, everything you look at, from the fence to the roof, the eaves, to the lighting fixtures, to the hose bib, to the hose hanging there.
Well, I
What's your
haven't been
opinion?
inside the building, I've been outside the building.
Okay, well, the inside's nicer than the outside. What do you think about the outside?
The outside, it's kept up nice for the wedding chapel, for the wedding venue. It's kept up nice. Inside, it's got, I know inside, you got 3 different tiers. You walk into the screen room, you walk into the, well, if I remember right, it's been a couple of years. Then you got to step up into the living room, then you got to step back down into the other room, then you got to go into a small kitchen. That's why I have concerns about the refrigerator.
Well, it's a substation, buddy. It's a
But you
substation.
still got guys living there. We have to make sure it's adequate.
And you can
it's
expect that
functional.
this board's gonna make that happen.
But you have to make it bigger than. So it's like, I just, I'm just gonna agree to disagree.
I understand, I'm sorry.
But I think what we discussed here is gonna make a lot of us think and
Yeah.
maybe come up with something else. And I think we ought to have another meeting down the road.
Oh, that,
Can I ask for this then?
Mhm.
Can the staff, set up another meeting within 2 weeks and I will, of course, I will find out what day they have available and check with you to see if it meets our time frame. Advertise another meeting at the site so the commissioners all can walk through it.
Okay, here's the problem with that. First on the date, our next board meeting is February 8th, February 9th. That's basically 2 weeks away.
Okay,
Okay, so that's our next board meeting. Because this is a issue that the entire Board of Commissioners is going to vote on, you have to have a public meeting that complies with the state statutes.
sure.
That means you cannot have a meeting where you're walking around a property and you're making comments and you're discussing among each other, because members of the public do not have accessibility for that. The example that's used in the statutes is holding a public meeting in a restaurant. You cannot do that because the only people, first of all, the public feels that they must purchase from the restaurant. And second, if communication happens around this table, it's not heard by other members. So this is kind of the same situation to where if you're walking a lot as a group of commissioners, you can't talk, you can't ask questions, you can't do that because it's not accessible to the public.
because they can't hear everybody's
Okay,
conversation.
so
Correct.
a question on that. I know that the city does do that at certain times on different properties they own. If there's a bathroom, we own the property, it's part of the fire district, so we should be able to have a meeting at that property, we own it. So,
They're renting from us, so I don't believe that's.
but I'll verify that, I'll verify it with them. I'm sorry?
We own it.
Right, we own it, so I'll verify that with our renter, that if he does not have, any function on the 8th of February, if it's possible, we could start our meeting, because you'll have time to advertise it, start our meeting at 4 o'clock or 4:30 or 5 o'clock, we do it at 5 o'clock. We'll just change the meeting from here to there, we own the property. And as long as the renter doesn't have a problem with us coming in there, which I don't believe he would, why don't we just have our meeting over there?
You can do that,
Yes, ma'am.
but you're still limited to, okay, here's the room that you're gonna have the meeting in.
Yes, ma'am.
You cannot go out and take your meeting outside
Yes,
and
ma'am.
walk around and ask questions together. You can't do that.
Right.
It's just public and have access.
I
To
think-
do all the conversations.
I think the chief could be over there and the concerns, he could escort us all around, explain to each one of us what's going on, and then that would
Sure.
solve your issue right there.
Yeah, I can do that.
I
That's
personally
what-
wouldn't want to have the meeting there just for the fact that you're talking about that.
That's fine, I'm okay with that.
I mean, I like it, I'd love to do it,
Right.
but the restrictions, I don't want to put us in a situation where,
Yeah, they-
we're going to
they've
talk
already-
outside the box or
I'm-
something and get us in
Politics
trouble.
right now.
Yeah, I don't feel comfortable getting any hot water right now.
I'd put live mics on all of us and say, go for it.
Bingo, me too,
That was a live meeting.
exactly, me too.
Well, that's true too, but.
And I think it would
It's
be,
probably not doable. I don't know what kind of,
if it is doable, though, the public would like that because they can see what the heck we're doing. I mean, why, I would think it's a plus to have it over there for the public
I agree.
size. I'm sorry?
no, I agree. And subject to all the restrictions we have to live by, there's some way to figure it out. I'd certainly think it's a huge plus to have it over there.
I do too. I really.
What do you think, Catherine?
I
Is there
think-
some obstacles that mics or what?
Well, I like Tony's idea, just, I'll go down and work with the chief and just, it suits the same purpose.
If
I
if
Me, no.
I
If the
disagree.
interest
There's
is
no
to
way we can
walk
do
the property and to understand each other ideas, The most efficient way to do that in the sunshine is to do it individually with Chief Sasser. Is if Commissioner Buckingham has an idea, then he takes Chief Sasser down there and Chief Sasser walks the property and understands what it is. If Commissioner Moore does it the same thing, and then Chief Sasser passes the information to the rest of the commissioners, just like we do everything else. And the reason why, while it's an inconvenience and it takes a lot of time for Chief Sasser, for us to get technology, I mean, you're asking for us to put capital improvement, I mean, to make capital purchases.
But that's no different we're doing here right now in this room.
No. In a short period of time, get the technology, get it all set up. I'm not sure that I can make that work with the time frame that you guys are talking about, trying to make a decision on this property. Because we have limited resources here. And unfortunately, there's resources and that time is taken right now with other tasks that must be done.
Might just give it up.
I'm
Not
not
gonna be able to do that.
Somebody,
Yeah.
whatever.
Because
I'm not arguing, I'm just, whatever.
Well, let's just put it this way. If you'd like to get with the chief, coordinate a time that he's available, and we'll go walk the property, and we'll just let Mike know that, hey, there's no event going on, if you don't mind, let's walk in the property.
Yeah, I can always call him prior to just to make sure.
Yeah.
Right, and what I will do, if this board prefers, I will get a footprint on the building. I will meet with the chief first. I will walk the chief and like the chief and I did at the beginning, and say, okay, this room is what we see, him and I see here, and this is what we see here, here, here. He'll make copies of it. That way, when you walk in, you'll have the answer, and it will be on one piece of paper, and you'll have the answer, and you put your notes on the piece of paper and hand it back to him.
That's good. Not to reinvent the wheel each time.
Yeah, there's just so many dang rules. Meaning that, the whole polling thing and all that, and, I can't be a conduit, but I can take, as, what Commissioner Buckingham would put on a piece of, this is his thoughts. And be able to walk through with each commissioner and explain that. And then you can provide me with the ideas. I just can't go back to him in between the next meeting and go, hey, this is what he thought, because then all I'm doing is a conduit. But I can take the whole board down there individually and say, this is what we're looking at, and lay it out. And then if I can answer any questions, by all means, I can.
That's fair enough.
That's perfectly fine with me.
And I can do the same thing with, Commissioner Wagner. He can tell me that this is what he's looking at, because he's already kind of laid it out. Mike's kind of laid out what he's, looking at, and we can do that. And I can show everybody all the plans that are there, so that way the next meeting that we have, everybody has the same kind of understanding, we've seen the same stuff. So that way maybe it's a more productive meeting.
The only thing that I would like to do, because, and then again, I'm blessed in certain ways, because I can see if somebody tells me they're gonna do this, and this over there, I can picture it. Some people, and I'm not saying y'all can't, but some people can't. The only reason I was suggesting being there was because I could stake out 4 corners of the new building, tape it off, so you actually could walk up and you could see where it's exactly sitting and what's gonna be beside it.
Nobody stopped me from doing that.
Yeah, you can do that.
Okay.
You can stake it off, and I can go down there, well, they can go down there on their own.
Mike Schultz might have a problem with that.
He won't if he
Well,
said.
no, it wouldn't be, but the time it took
Yeah,
us to walk
He
through there.
wouldn't, as long as the chief did it all within an hour or two, or a couple hours, I don't think he'd have a
We
problem
can
with
do that. And I like I get absolutely what Commissioner Wilson was talking about with the microphones, as Catherine says, and we can do that. Invest in the capital so that it's got the property. We've got all the stuff to be able to do that, so everybody can walk around, you can record everybody's conversation, everybody's comments all at the same time, while it's recording it. But
that. I like that.
I still think we don't need to miss the boat on dealing with the county and the state on this, because I like his idea of having a helipad right there, back by the water. I mean, it's basically just an open area with no power lines or anything.
That's taking the tree down, that's taking one of those big trees on the back down there. We don't want to do that.
But
But we will
the
have the
idea
ability.
I'm saying is, we don't want to lose the opportunity to
Oh,
get
yeah,
money
I
from
agree with that.
somewhere
I agree with
else.
that.
Well, just so you all know, we will have the ability to do that out front here. Because he asked me that question, and we will make sure there's that ability right here for it. Yes,
The ramp, very similar to what you might
There
see
will
out
be
here at
that.
Station 9 now. We land helicopter, we've done it many times, right on the front ramp. Basically be the same thing,
We'll do
because
it
that's
right
the
here.
front of the station.
So keep that in mind.
Is there a boat launch in the back, Tommy, by the dock?
No, sir.
Hold on for a second. Catherine's good.
An idea was just brought up it is possible we could do a virtual tour and then come in and show it to the Board of Commissioners.
I see, yeah, I'm with you. That's an interesting idea. You know?
Because that takes, it doesn't
I like that
violate
idea.
any public, and yet you have whoever wants to show.
Yeah.
We just record it and come in here and the
Put it up on the
commission
screen.
watches it, put it on the screen, you guys watch it, have your tour, your virtual tour of it. It doesn't have to be live, it can be recorded.
Like a
prior
house
to.
tour or something.
Well, Chief, maybe you and I do that.
Okay.
Maybe we get Tracy involved,
Okay.
get Tracy or Bobby
Or
to come over
we can
and
just
do the
video.
video why we're doing it. Why we're explaining what we're talking about doing, and we put it on a piece of paper and y'all can watch it. That's not a bad idea. I like that. I like it.
Yeah, that, I think that's good.
Yeah.
Give it a try.
I like that idea.
Put it on and look at the whole property.
Mhm.
Trees.
We either, we either get Bobby, which is perfectly fine, the chief can contact him, or Tracy, and come and do it. I like that idea.
That's why Coach keeps you in the game.
Oh, no, that was not my idea. We thank Miss Tammy for
Well,
that.
that's why we call you the chief, you the boss. You are the boss.
Good deal. Well,
Yeah, I like it.
we've had some good conversation.
Yeah, I particularly like Tommy's idea of the other people that are putting boats in the water back there. Because they would rent them a parking spot for their truck, charge them a launch fee or a dock fee, whatever you want. We'd have the water guys, the game guys, everybody else.
Well, the only thing you gotta be careful of is please keep in mind that we're gonna be limited to parking. But unless we redesign the whole lot,
Not if we took down the Bay House.
no, that's correct, that's correct.
I mean, like, we're looking down the road, you
Right.
know,
Yeah,
and that's what Bob, I think down the bottom, let's look down the road, but at the same time, let's figure out how we're gonna get there.
Right, let's get it, exactly.
Yeah.
I'm good with it.
All right.
So my question to the board is, do I abandon this right here? I want a conceptual.
No, I wouldn't abandon it.
I wouldn't
I'd keep it
abandon
in
it.
So do I go and get a conceptual design done, or do I, am I wasting my
I
time?
would wait until maybe another meeting to do this.
Okay, and with that said, guys, let's please keep in mind, our ultimate goal was, all of us, was to be able to break ground on July 1st. Have our permit in our hand in June, and break ground on July 1st, and the chief have a truck sitting there where we're building. But we've already wasted a month, so we need to get the decision to figure out, because it's gonna take months to do this. I made that clear in the beginning.
I don't want to rush this thing. We already waited 3 years. I
And I'm not arguing that,
too.
I'm just saying what this board asked for, so just keep that in mind. If that's the goal they want to stay at, then we need to make some decisions. If you choose to put it off for 6 more months,
This is a big decision.
I don't think everybody's saying 6 months, but I'm uncomfortable saying let's get it done by this date.
I don't want to-
Where we are right now,
correct.
that means we gotta choose something tomorrow and spend 10 grand on it, something, whatever. Let's just get it, we're not close enough, I don't think, to where we're
Oh, no.
all on the same page.
Right.
And we can say, let's go do this, we need to
I'm
be
good
there, and then we ought to say, now what do we have to do to meet our date?
And I'm not opposed to, if y'all all agree or whatever, setting a schedule up of meetings until we get to that point.
I'm all for
I mean,
that.
I don't want to have a meeting and say, well, 2 or 3 more weeks down the road, let's talk about it again. If you want to have one, talk about it next meeting a little bit, and then a week later, have another meeting. Let's get it,
Can
the ball rolling as quick as we
We have a
can.
meeting once a month. Can you set up the times that it's in the middle of every month, we have a meeting until we get this done?
You want it monthly, you want it weekly?
No,
We can
I mean,
set it up
two
any
months.
schedule you'd like.
You can advertise every week, and then we can always cancel and make every 2 weeks.
Oh,
That's
no, we can advertise one time for set number of meetings. We
I
can
just feel
advertise them
like
weekly.
going
If we decide to cancel them,
Set up
you
every
can
weekend.
cancel everything, but at least they're set.
Set it up every weekend.
I like that.
Yeah, me too.
All right, well, Miss Tammy and I will, yeah, we'll reach out
That's a
and
good idea.
we'll work with
Post it one
Commissioner
time.
Moore.
Right, that's how we would have done it, exactly. I know where he was going, is that, have a scheduled meeting every week.
And at a time.
We advertise it one time, and that's what it
Doesn't
costs.
have to have it.
You know, like the same, let's talk about time. You like the same time, same day of the week?
I'm perfectly fine with any, what y'all come up with.
I think, if we're able to do this early in the morning, and pick a day during the week, if that's okay.
I like it in the middle of the
Wednesday or
week, just in case I
Me
get
too.
something going on.
Wednesday about 10 o'clock,
Perfect.
it's 9, 10, whatever,
Let's 9.
okay.
Is that good?
I'm good with that.
Because
Whatever
we've
you
talked
want.
now, it's
You good with that, Tom?
just 12.
Jack, you good with that?
Yeah, good for that.
Let's make it happen.
We'll get
Every
it.
week, every Wednesday, 10 o'clock?
Every Wednesday,
9
10 o'clock,
9
9 o'clock. The first one will not begin Now you have your,
So,
it's gonna take 10 days to advertise. So we have our board meeting on February 9th, which is a Tuesday. So we'll make it, we'll skip that week and make the weekly ones begin
We'll talk
after.
about it
Our board meeting.
at our board meeting. We'll kick
Okay.
some more ideas around or
Correct.
whatever.
And I'm gonna contact Mike as I walk out and ask for a footprint of the building. We'll get working on this.
Yeah,
I'll try to have some stuff for our next meeting,
Can you,
for the chief to walk you guys through.
can you get the doc too?
Yes, sir.
Yes, I'm not trying to get the conversation now, but I think we need to look at the dock layout for boats, because it's, the way it's coming in now, it's coming from the north, south. With that tide going either which way, I think we're gonna have to, boats gonna be going east or west. My opinion.
But then again, please keep in mind, because you and I live right there on that water, when that north wind comes out, for them to come in sideways, it's gonna be tough too. So
Yeah,
it's.
but we're dealing with
right.
tide more than we are wind.
Yeah, you are right though, it's, no matter which way we come in that thing, it's gonna be tough.
Yeah, it's gonna be tough, so it's just something we
Part of
can,
the deal.
That's exactly, we gotta have good boat captains.
So you got a boat driver.
Right.
but that was just so we can have a
There's lot of
conversation in the
difference between a
future
Captain and a boat driver.
about some layout. Too, 'cause when we get that boat back, we gotta,
The good thing is that we have something to put the boat in today.
Yeah.
That is permitted.
so we're good. All right, any further discussion? All right, I'd like to open the floor up to public comments.
let me see if there's any
Okay.
public here.
Good meeting, thank you.
Okay, seeing none, we'll close the floor to public comments. If there's nothing else coming from the board, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Hey, you want to guess what the most hurricane-proof